the Russians were fortunate because they had received information from the Allies, partly thanks to breaking the Enigma code, that the Germans were planning a major armored offensive in the Kursk area. So the Soviets knew about that, and they started preparing for it by preparing a strategy of defense in depth. They simply started digging these anti-tank obstacles. You could say anti-tank trenches because they are a little bit wider than your average trench. And then normal trenches as well. And instead of having 3, 4, 5, or 6 lines, they would have 15 or 20 such lines. And when the German armor attacked, they might break through 3, 4, 5, but getting past 8, 9, or 10 proved impossible. So these tanks would be taken out, and at the end, the Red Army would launch a classical pincer maneuver, and the Germans had to withdraw under heavy losses. What we have been seeing in Bakhmut in recent weeks and months is also a defense in depth strategy. Naturally, the city itself is, as the Ukrainians themselves call it, a fortress, Fortezza Bakhmut. But around it, they have been preparing these defenses even before the war even started, since Bakhmut was so close to the front lines that they knew if there will be an attack in the future, this city will be a big price, and we have to prepare good defenses. But then Bakhmut has now been under direct assault for almost 8 months, and the Ukrainians, they have been just reinforcing these trenches in the vicinity. So the Russians, they are really suffering somewhat of a similar fate to what the German army did at Kursk in 1943. But there is still, it is not the scale of the Eastern Front of the Second World War.
No.
If we look at the amount of tanks, if we look at the amount of defensive lines, it simply isn't on the same scale. Even if we look at artillery shelling, for example, the Ukrainians, they have to hold back. They have more artillery. They have more, even that modern 155 millimeter artillery that has been sent by the West, the HIMARS, all of it. They have more than they have of ammunition. They simply can't use as much as they would like to. And the Russians, they still fire 4, 5, or 6 times more rounds every day than the Ukrainians do. So artillery shell production is really one of the big bottlenecks for the Ukrainian army. And unfortunately, just as the Germans, they made that mistake of not embracing full wartime production. It took them 3-4 years into the war before they really did it. Unfortunately, a year has passed, and now, a few days ago, the European Union reached an agreement to launch this joint ammunition production program that will be able to provide 1 million shells per year once it is implemented, which will take another few months. And 1 million shells is naturally better than what we have now, but it's still far from what is needed. And what is worrying is that even if we would like to start this production now, we lack the capacity, simply the industrial production capacity.
Well, that's another point, of course. Yes, we are very short, and of course, labour.
Yes.
And in Western Europe, we're in the midst of lots of strikes because people are fed up with high energy costs and inflation.
Sadly so.
So all of which is not conducive necessarily to immediately switching to large-scale production.
Yes, and then another large problem is that we're also very short on the raw materials that is needed for production.
Adam, as usual, the clock in the corner of the room has defeated us, so I'll have to ask you to pause there, but we'll pick it up next time. There we are, as usual, defeated by time, but fear not, if you join us next time, as we hope you will, we'll pick up the story here on Poland Daily History. In the meantime, Thank you for watching and see you next time.